And hello, everyone from Seattle. I'm very grateful to be in this shared space with you this evening and exploring the notion of being of service as a visionary for our planet. One of the things that I feel has been most important on my journey has been the awareness that heeding the calling of being of service as a visionary has some context. I feel that many of us are born by nature. We have deep intuition and knowing and connection. And structurally, societally, many people utilize that vision to support conditioned beliefs and what we've been trained to understand as measures of success, a abundant life, a meaningful journey. And so oftentimes, the business world, our political realms, they guide us to measure and base those successes off of profit-driven motives, comparative motives, thinking and operating from a place of lack or limitation. And for me, a lot of my journey has been opening up to exploring what my own truth is with all of kind of what I refer to as the past paradigm ways of belief. And that took many years of deep inner reflection and really questioning the system. And ever since I was a youth, my mother liked to tell me that I was born questioning authority and always looking at ways things could be different. So I think for some of us who didn't fully accept all of that conditioning from the get-go, it might have been a little easier to respond to what we feel are actually possibilities for change and evolution. And so that little bit of what I would say was maybe a reserved defiance that I had in myself and in my soul served me on some levels. My mom liked to say that ever since I was 4 years old, she knew that she wasn't going to be able to mother me. So for me, it started pretty young. And the way that evolved and expanded for all of us, regardless of age or phase of life, it's can be an energetic struggle, as Jeff was speaking to, of not only accepting and choosing what to accept, but also choosing what to disintegrate, that we are taught in schooling and work, careers. For me, that really started in considering what types of careers and what I wanted to be, my youth and as a child. And of course, all the typical roles were all up for option. And there was a part of me that just really, thought I might start off as an attorney because I believed in justice and equity and all these values that I had that I really felt I wanted to take a stand and represent in my life. Then that shifted to perhaps wanting to be a physician because I felt that I wanted to support the healing and the well-being and the health and the vibrancy of human beings and our planet. And that was definitely something that came to mind as a strong possible career path. And eventually in college, it also evolved into perhaps I'll be a news broadcaster because I want to be able to share and tell the truth. And, all the things that we explore from a career standpoint. And eventually I came to know that business was actually my calling. And so I went to business school and really looked into what was in my heart and what I felt, where I felt I was going to be able to contribute the most progressive change and kind of authentic intention. And that took me down a journey of starting my career in business consulting for a Big 5 consulting firm. And eventually knowing with the rise of tech that I would work supporting strategy and planning and business management for software and tech development type companies. Eventually, I was recruited by Microsoft and never thought I would work there. It was much more of a relational and long-term kind of engagement soul, but it impressed me, and I met a lot of wonderful, beautiful people and many visionaries in their own right. And so I continued with that journey and really knew that in my heart, that calling for me was that from the very beginning, I didn't ever feel like I was home. And what did that actually mean to me from a career standpoint? I just knew that this pathway was temporary. And eventually, having been, working at Microsoft for 5 years in the corporate world, I started to receive guidance, as Kelly was speaking about, much more deeply around meaning in my life and being of service and purpose in a very applied way. And so when I answered that calling, it came in the form of not so much a New Year's resolution, but guidance between the week of Christmas and New Year's, that I would be leaving corporate world and a lot was going to be shifting in my life. Very interestingly, in the same year as Jeff of 2009, I actually, I just kind of waited patiently without heading it and making all those decisions by mind. And that calling actually came during the summertime of that year. And within 2 months, I had left my career, and with everyone around me saying, why would you do this when you've kind of, quote, made it at your young age? And was listening to what I know to be the soul of our organization, Optyva. And when the voice and a calling comes from a perspective that not only you can no longer deny, but is so clear, one of the most challenging things was, following my heart. That was the year that I literally, my life turned inside out. And I, people might refer to it as a leap of faith, but I was following my heart. And that's one of the biggest aspects for me, learning to trust my authentic heart rather than planning everything with the mind. And so making that shift and coming into founding Optyva and our Optivist co-creative, which I really believe is not just the what, but the how we answer the visionary calling. And, if we go back to kind of the beginnings of my share, that, many people that have the visionary mind will apply it for motives that might be either societally driven or self-motivated, for success and growth and size, profitability. I felt that my motives were really, really different when it came to vision. And they were centered around having meaning and purpose in my life and being able to attract authentic tribe, not just collaborators or business partners, but people that I love and care for and would like to see them heeding their own visionary calling in ways that were authentic to their hearts and their purposes. So that is how I really devoted the last 11 years since Optyva's inception. And what that entails is really following that guided vision and that deeper soul purpose and allowing my authentic self to come forward in all of the ways that, our minds might not always acknowledge. And so I've co-founded or founded now 4 different organizations that have intersectional shared purpose. And that meaning for me has really come through the notion of co-creation. So where I feel authentic visionary mind applied really gets into the heart of things is when we accept and acknowledge that nobody who serves as a visionary has ever actually manifested or accomplished anything on their own. Even if you're, Bill Gates or Rockefeller, or whoever you've been in history, known to be a visionary. No one ever got there alone. And so the relationships that I support and nurture are really the heart of answering that calling, and being able to share and inspire others along the pathway who are perhaps going through those challenging times of discomfort or trusting in the vision. How do I listen? How do I first act? And how do I inspire others along the journey? That has been my sole purpose, is to support this in others. And that is what has been so rewarding for me. And the way that answering that calling continues on, it's never just a one-time static experience that the calling comes and then you're on the path, and from there it's just like a linear journey. For me, it's definitely been very dynamic and nonlinear, and based in constant connection, much more deeply with the heart and soul, well beyond just the mind and the vision and the sight. And so from that perspective, going back into what Kelly was sharing at the top of our call, that a soul's remembering of the vision being held in our DNA is really how I've approached and maintained that relationship over time, and made decisions, made investments, nurtured partnerships and relationships, has always come forward from a place of trusting not only intuition, but my own inner truth. And oftentimes I feel in business, business being a catalyst for evolution and change, we're taught to always judge things and perceive them. And, we even have all of like the measurements and the paradigms of what's your personality type. And I found that all of those models and measures of putting us into a box actually is part of that, for me, that disintegration, which doesn't really honor the unique aspect and purpose that each individual soul and spirit holds. For me, it's always been a process of remembering self and inviting that journey much more deeply, continuous and inspired, and very much heart connected. So I would hope tonight, and here we are, I'm in Seattle, it's 2:00 in the morning, that the inspiration shared today on this call between the three of us, Jeff, Kelly, and I, we really have established a friendship and a partnership and a collaboration that is authentic for me. And it's these types of relationships that have maintained that calling of, new relationships, long-term relationships. I believe Jeff and I have been collaborating now for 7 or 8 years. And he just recently introduced me to Kelly. And so that's how that fabric has always grown to be much more rewarding and resilient, is by maintaining that authentic heart. And I really appreciate being able to share and be a part of the journey tonight.